Prime Minister, therefore, week after week, this is a clarification, week after week, you're the only person here to answer questions from the media. We see that there was a full turnout on the cruise ship of ministers there, yet there's no one here but yourself.
Full.
So I would like to ask, why is it that, where are the other ministers, and why is it that they don't show up to this forum to answer questions? Because we do have questions for them, and a lot of the times you don't have the full information in order to provide clarity to what we ask. So why are they not here? And my question that I would like to ask Prime Minister, concerns have been expressed regarding the granting of permits for several events smack in the middle of Carnival. And the concerns also relate to whether the police is able to guarantee safety of revelers at both of these major events, so the event outside of Carnival as well as the events that will be taking place for Carnival itself, as well as to, you know, also guarantee safety of the rest of the community at large. So my question is, were all parties consulted prior to the granting of this, the permit for the event outside of Carnival? And is there any guarantees that revelers in the community can have that, you know, safety, you know, these events will be safe and they're able to offer protection? And on the same issue of Carnival, you had indicated last year to me, Prime Minister, that the boots that were damaged during the hurricane would have been ready this year. I did send some questions to you on that, and I'm hoping that you can provide me with some answers as to whether those boots are ready, and if they are not, when they will be ready.
The transition period and ministers being available for the press briefing, it's something that we discuss. It's part of our, let's say, our agenda in the Council of Ministers, and they notify whether they will be able to attend or not. It is not something that can be forced. Ministers have been providing updates via the regular, DCOM, press statements, etc. And as we state here, if there are questions and persons are not here, then these can be submitted in writing. I will do my best to convey to my colleagues the need to come and answer some of these questions, but it is not something that I can mandate, unfortunately. As it relates to the permits for events and security at such events, that is an advice that is done within the Ministry of Justice via the police department. And I believe that the considerations were taken, and anything further would have to be divulged by the Minister of Justice. I know we did have discussions about it, and the schedules were perused prior to giving the permits. And I will then leave any further elucidations to the Minister of Justice in this regard, who consulted with the police department. So I know when events are scheduled, that the event holders are to ensure the security of that event. The police does support the events at the Carnival Village, and of course have to be on standby for any eventuality as well within the community on a normal basis. And I would have to assume that that was taken into consideration based on advice received from the police as well. As it relates to the Festival Village, unfortunately, the second tender that went out also failed. So I was not able to get an update as to the next step from those concerned. We are going through some, let's say, construction. The ducts within the air-conditioned ducts are being changed out. So at differing times, different departments are not within the building. And so we're relying on email correspondence, etc., to get responses. And there has been a delay in us being able to get that, for which I apologize. So the facilities management department head was in charge of that, and he is currently out sick. And so, you know, it falls to the next person. So I will do my best to get that answer to you before the end of the week as to the status of that project. But regrettably, we weren't able to finalize it in January as we had expected. It wasn't expected to take that long. At least we could have demolished the first phase could have been done pre-Carnival to at least demolish the destroyed booths. And I must say it is something that I take responsibility for. It falls within my purview that we were not able to execute in time for this carnival as well. So my apologies to all stakeholders concerned, but when we put out public tenders and they fail, unfortunately, there is nothing that we who want the project to move on can do, because at the end of the day, how do you explain still putting someone to work when the tender did not come out with a vendor that could prove to carry out the work within the scope that was given? So I don't know if we need to adjust the scope. All of this, I still need to get information on. So bear with us as we gather that information. GB, in the meantime, with the assistance of funding from the World Bank through the NRPB, has also started their tender process to outsource a grid studies and integrated resource plan, IRP. The results of these studies will provide a necessary insight into the current state of GEBE's power generation and distribution networks, and that are required to advance on our renewable energy projects and general infrastructure upgrades required to support growth of new energy generation. BTP, in the meantime, remains in close contact with the Ministry of TEAT, the Minister of TEAT, regarding the necessary process to make the amendments to the legislation to appoint BTP as a regulator of the National Utility Company. Question 10 from MP Westcott Williams: long-term solutions. Can the Prime Minister and GB be more specific, and what does that mean for the current outages and load shedding? How much longer will we experience these? What time frame? In what time frame can these solutions be implemented? As mentioned briefly before, GB is currently collaborating with the World Bank and NRPB to complete an investment plan. The scope for GEBE's investment plan will be executed in a two-phased approach. The first phase will focus on resolving the urgent needs and developing a least cost power development plan, LCPDP. The assignment will commenced in December 2023 and is expected to be concluded 3 months later. The LCPDP is for a 10-year horizon starting in 2024 and will provide recommendations for developing the optimal expansion plan for the generation and transmission system of GB, focusing on the island supply options and ambition for renewable integration. The optimal expansion will minimize the expected net present value of investment, operating costs, and cost of non-supply demand over the period from a country's perspective, subject, of course, to risk-based constraints regarding minimum reliability and maximum operation costs. The company has engaged a consultant through the NRPB who will assist in conducting a crucial feasibility study. This study aims to identify the most suitable form of renewable energy based on existing infrastructure. It will also assess whether upgrades are necessary to integrate renewable energy sources, and the study also considers the company's current installed capacity, present peak demand of 56.4 megawatts, as well as the ongoing growth of the island impacting our reliability criteria. Consequently, the focus will be on expanding GEB's generating capacity, installed capacity to meet the rising demand. These efforts towards the progress, growth, and sustainability of NVGB aligns with the government's vision through its roadmap towards renewable energy. To support this vision, funding was made available through the Emergency Recovery Project 1, ERP1, of the St. Martin Trust Fund, and the short term, to address the current issue of load shedding, GB is in the process of reviewing the possibility of leasing additional mobile engine capacity to cover the shortfall in electricity supply. In addition to this, the COM-approved roadmap for the transition to renewable energy is being taken along by those doing the feasibility study. The GB business plan is currently being updated. MP Westcott asked further, and the Energy Work Group is updating the plan. There is an energy plan in which the role of GB is detailed. Is that energy plan being followed? What was done is being done. Who is the Energy Work Group, and what does that mean in terms of time, money, and what the people of St. Martin can look forward to and when? GB has been falling behind in executing its role regarding the energy policy. The current management has acknowledged this shortcoming and has made staff available to be part of the work group. The group comprises of individuals from the Department of Interior and Kingdom Relations, BAC, VROMI, TEAT, and NVGB. The MP looks forward to concrete information, the status of load shedding, the status of employees, and a financial bottom line. NVGB's latest audited statements are for the year 2019. To avoid any possible misinterpretations, misrepresentations, GB management prefers to wait until the year 2020 and 2021. Audited statements are available, and then these will be shared with Parliament. This will ensure that all the necessary information is accurate and up to date. To address the current issue of load shedding, GB is in the process of reviewing, I mentioned this before, the additional mobile engine capacity. MP Rumu asked if that consumers are still receiving inaccurate bills. Are there any different steps being taken by NVGB to address these discrepancies and finally ensure that the billing is accurate? GB informs that it is monitoring its billing system to ensure that no accurate bills are sent out. However, they have identified that some accounts are still contain some inaccuracies dating back to their inception, so since the beginning, not just from the hack. Additionally, some customers who move frequently, 2 or 3 times per year, run the risk of not having their accounts closed off properly, resulting in continued billing based on their old meter. This is being addressed on a case-by-case basis.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
Prime Minister, there was an ad in the newspaper placed by the NRPB asking for signage about securing the resettlement area of impact. Is this related to the solid waste management? Can you explain a little bit what this is in reference to, and what project is it attached to?
As you may know, the resettlement area of impact around the landfill had to be evacuated, and that process is nearing its completion. And of course, then we have to secure it, of course, that persons do not re-enter. So we have to ensure that there is signage there to inform persons not to re-enter or rehabilitate that area. And that is being finalized. Of course, it has to be done publicly and transparently. And in my updates with the NRPB to the Parliament yesterday, there was a great interest to have further discussions on the EDMP project because it forms part of the Emergency Debris Management Project. So that's a very big project which has multiple activities included in it, including legislation for waste management, etc., that is in process, and the Waste Authority as well. So it is a lot of moving parts, but one of them is finalizing the resettlement of persons who were in that area that was considered the impact area that had to be cleared.
So for clarity, does that mean that agreements have been made between government and the people in that resettlement area for some sort of compensation and relocation out of that area?
So a committee was established. I believe Mr. Richards headed that committee on behalf through the NRPB. So it wasn't government directly involved in the resettlement itself, but a committee that was established within the NRPB, a project management group that looked at also the social impacts, assisting the persons there with whatever was needed. And as I mentioned, yes, they are close to the end of finalizing the agreements. Several have been already completed, and they are moving forward now to finalize that so that we can consider that part completed.
The AXA committee met last year. I think it was late last year, during which time a number of issues took center stage, including the apologies issued by the King and the Prime Minister. The issue of reparation also took center stage. This committee was supposed to have made a report available to your person as Prime Minister. If you have received such a report, can you give us an idea as to what's in there, taking into consideration as well that July 1st, Emancipation Day is quickly approaching?
Been submitted. They did ask for further extension to submit that, and they continue to do their work. It turned out to be a lot more work. I believe they have like 7 subcommittees of AXAR that is actively doing research and working. And for us, the next step, for me, the first step that should have been, or that I would really have liked to see finalized before leaving office, would be that their position is formalized as an independent entity outside of government. And that is still being worked on, getting the necessary funding that was promised via the, after the apology and the money that was made available. They are working together with the University of St. Martin, which was able to get the initial $25,000, I believe, to get some of the work that is needed to formalize AXAR's position and to help them to be able to get their report finalized as well. So I don't have the final report yet, but I will see what I can get to send to you in writing as well.
Asset V insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? Asset V is cardless. Request your My Asset V account today and enter the virtual office of Asset V. Go to assetv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah, your social health insurances.
A country in chaos. Heavily armed gangs tried to seize control of Haiti's main airport on Monday, exchanging fire with police and soldiers. The attack is the latest in an explosion of violence that's included the escape of several thousand inmates from the country's two biggest prisons, leaving some dead. Curfew and emergency measures are in place, but the violence is escalating. It's forcing businesses and schools to close and hundreds of people to flee for safety.
Since the day I left my house, I've lived like an animal because in the space we sleep, even animals don't sleep there. We're crammed together.
Gangs led by Jimmy Cherigier, a former police officer known as Barbecue, are trying to overthrow the government. Prime Minister Ariel Henry travelled overseas trying to get support for a UN-backed security force. But the unrest worsened in his absence.
The situation is getting worse. The national police can do nothing against armed gangs. Only a military force can help us in this situation.
In 2019, an increase in fuel prices led to protests and escalated into a long drawn-out crisis involving job losses, rises in the cost of living and food shortages. More than half of the country's 11 million citizens living under poverty line were affected. 2 years later, the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse led to lawlessness that's continued to worsen. Nearly 5,000 people have been killed in the violence in 1 year, and armed groups now control about 80% of the capital, according to the United Nations. And it's calling for funding to tackle the situation and for elections to be held in Haiti.
The Secretary General reiterates the need for urgent action, particularly in providing financial support for the multinational security support mission to address the pressing security requirements of the Haitian people and prevent the country from plunging further into chaos.
The unrest in Haiti is worrying neighboring states. The Dominican Republic has refused to open refugee camps for people fleeing Haiti. The U.S. has asked American citizens to leave quickly. But for those left in the country, there's no escape from the reality of what the UN describes as catastrophic levels of hunger and violence that are only getting worse. Kulsum Sharif, Al Jazeera, for Inside Story.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hall, first of all, for this invitation to Al Jazeera English. And I would also like to, first and foremost, present my deepest condolences to the families that have fallen prey to this wave of insecurity in Haiti, particularly the valiant and courageous police officers that go out there every day to risk their lives to try to preserve a safe environment for us all. In the scope of all of this, we tend to forget that we have some police officers that are going out there every day risking their lives, and their valiant efforts has to be recognized.
Does it shock you what's happening?
It saddens me to say that what is happening right now is not all too shocking. The reason being is for the better part of the last 2 years, the government and the National Police Force have been alerting the international community of the risks at bay. We unfortunately have a police force that has not had the capacity to face this current wave of gang warfare. Doesn't mean it doesn't have the tactical capacity. In terms of numbers, we are outnumbered and we are outgunned. Unfortunately, what's happening today is not all that surprising, especially when you have gangs that are coordinating their efforts to thin out the capacity of the police force that's already thin and take advantage of some weak points. It is an outcry. It is sad. However, there is a solution. The National Police Force has a solution to be able to come to a resolution of this insecurity. And the first thing has been for the past 2 years, in terms of what we've been advocating for, the government and the police force, the establishment of a collaboration between the National Police Force and a multinational support to that force.
So you believe that an international security force is the answer, or part of the answer?
It is definitely part of the answer, and it's only part of the answer. There are many other facets of this security problem. The fact that we have young men and women that are falling prey to gang activities is because they have been left to no other alternatives than that route. So in concurrently with security measures, Haiti has to be seen as an area where it has to be invested into its citizens. We need to invest more in Haiti. It may be counterintuitive to speak about investment, but Haiti is one of those countries, one of those lands that has the most propensity to lift itself out of this economic doldrums that we find ourselves into.